Hey, what's up everybody? This is Like It's 1985, and today we are going to take a look at Transformers 4, Age of Extinction, Voyager class, Autobot Hound. Now first, let's take a quick peek at the actual artwork here in the box, which is really cool. I do like it a lot, and I think it's worth showing off. Okay, so let's have a detailed look at the figure itself. Let's go ahead and take out the weapon here, and we'll focus on the weapons later. But for now, let's focus on the robot mode here. And taking a quick look here at the head sculpt, really nice. Nice sculpt. I do like that look. Really nice. You got a nice chest sculpt there, some paint in the center of the chest. You got some nice I guess that's missiles there on his upper arm, which is really nice. And then the arms themselves, if you take a close look, are composed of ammo belts, or clips, or ammo belts, I guess you call them. So that is really cool. But the thing about the arm is, as you see, you look underneath here and you can see how they designed it, which is really interesting. But when I first saw the images of this particular figure, I was really drawn to the head sculpt, but also to the arms that were comprised of the ammo belt here on both of his arms, which is really nice. A really nice detail there. As we take a look at the rest of the figure here, you can see it actually is nicely painted, nicely detailed, of course. Take a look at the back here. Now, as far as articulation goes, the head appears to be on just a swivel. And I'm just noticing right now his beard itself is made of a flexible plastic. You can see there as it clashes against the side of his armor there. You can see it does flex. Then you have shoulders, of course, that go all the way around, out like that. Swivel there, a bend there at the elbow. And you can kind of twist the arm a little bit. Again, it's that unique type of joint. There actually is a joint right there at the wrist. But as you move it around, it does flex the soft plastic that comprises his forearm, which is nice. So you got this kibble here, which is kibble, but you can maybe pretend it's like a hand armor or something like that to protect his hand. So you can kind of deal with it that way, I guess. You do have a lot of kibble there hanging off of the elbow and the upper arm there. Going back to articulation, you have full rotation at the waist. Then you have articulation at the hips, swivel at the thigh, bend at the knee, and you have this wonky articulation at the ankles, which really is due to the transformation. So there is your articulation for Hound. So pretty cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at his weaponry. Now, as you might know, Autobot Hound does come with an arsenal of weapons. I happen to put them all together here. They do peg together in one way or another. This is what I came up with, this massive, giant weapon of doom. But as you can see, they pull apart and they form individual weaponry, like that. So he does come with a lot of weapons. You can see there, a couple of pistols, a couple of blasters. It's got the knife here. And let's see what else. You can unplug this from there, and that from there. You can see all types of good stuff here for Hound to wield. Definitely would make Ironhide jealous, I think. Now, just focusing on this weapon here, what you can do is you can pull this section down here, and this actually will rotate like that, giving you some kind of 3-barrel rifle. This also lets you store this on the side of the vehicle mode with the gun in this type of arrangement here. Now, the really cool part about Hound is not only does he have a multitude of weapons, but also he can store those weapons on his robot mode. As you can see here, taking a look at the back here, the big gun can store and peg in on the back, like that. Then you have his knife here pegged into his chest. You got these two guns here on the sides here that are identical. They peg in, but they tend to fall out. So these are a little bit of an issue. Then you have on his hips, you have those guns there, as you can see. And certainly, last but not least, you do have these weapons that peg in like that. There's a little bit of a tab sticking out there, and they just slot in on the side of his leg, and they don't fall out. Like I said, the only ones that have a tendency to fall out are these ones right here. So really, really nice that Hound can store his weapons on his body in robot mode. And as you can see, this just fell out. So case in point. Okay, so I've been playing around with the figure with the weapons, and I actually found a better placement for the rocket launchers. As you recall, I mentioned the rocket launchers are supposed to be tabbed into the side or the torso of Hound here in robot mode. However, I found a better location for them. As you can see, I placed them on the backpack here, and they look fantastic there. And they're almost the right angle where they can actually be considered almost like over-the-shoulder rocket launchers. Here they're more in their like undeployed position, but still, I think it looks pretty good. If they could angle just a little bit more, that would be even better. But as they are, I think they look better, and they actually hold better in those peg holes there. So that looks pretty cool to me. And for the first size comparison, here is Hound next to Voyager class, Dark of the Moon, Sentinel Prime, and Megatron. Here is the Transformers Prime, Robots in Disguise, Voyager class, Bulkhead next to Hound. Here is Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen, Voyager class, Recon, Ironhide. And compared to Hound, he is of course much bigger, and one can only wish that Hound was released earlier, either as part of the first movie or second movie, because of course the figures back then were much bigger. Here is Hound compared to Drift and Crosshairs. Here is Hound compared to Slug and Scorn. Here is Hound compared to Voyager Optimus Prime and Voyager Grimlock. Alright, so let's go ahead and transform Hound here into vehicle mode. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at Hound here in vehicle mode. The wheels all do move, as you can see there. There's some nice sculpting in the plastic, as you can see. A very nicely detailed front end, as you can see, with the different paint applications, the sculpting, and so forth. Now, the one thing I do have an issue with this is it's rather plain because the green is just green. In the actual movie, he actually has a camo type of paint scheme or color scheme. And as it is right now, even though there's sculpting detail, there is not a whole lot of paint detail. It's just basically a big mass of green plastic, some black here, some gray. So the front end looks very detailed, but then from the side, the top, and the back, it's rather plain. I mean, they could have painted in like tail lights here, added just some panel lining there, and so forth. So it's a little bit disappointing because in the actual movie he does have a army camouflage type of paint or color design. So there's a look at Hound here in vehicle mode. So next up, let's take a look at size/scale comparisons. So for the size/scale comparison, I do have to begin by saying that Hound here in vehicle mode is disappointingly small. If you compare him to Crosshairs in his Corvette mode, you basically have a Corvette versus a Army truck. Obviously the Corvette should not be that big in relation to the Army truck, so there you go. So there is that issue with scale, as you can see. And here is Voyager Hound compared to Optimus Prime. Now you can see the cab here looks overly large as compared to the cab section of Hound, so I don't know if this is really in scale, doesn't appear to be. You can see there a comparison of the front end there. So it seems to be out of scale with the Optimus figure. And just for fun, let me bring in Dinobot Slash. I know he's a dinosaur, but it kind of illustrates my point that this is a raptor, this is a truck. They shouldn't be, the difference in scale or size shouldn't be as great. So you do have that issue with Hound here. Unfortunately, Hound here in vehicle mode is smaller than I would like. And he actually is pretty narrow too. If we go back and compare him to Crosshairs here, you can see how narrow he looks compared to the Corvette. So there is that issue with Hound's vehicle mode scale / size. And as you can see, the weapons can be placed on either side of the vehicle. This is not exactly how the box and the instructions show, but it's close and basically gives you an idea of what you can do with the weapons as far as storing them in the vehicle mode here. Okay, so let me go over my final thoughts as I transform Hound back into robot mode. As I mentioned before, the size and the scale on this figure is a bit disappointing, even though we've come to expect a downsizing in our figures ever since Dark of the Moon. It still is disappointing for a Hound figure to be this small in vehicle mode. So there is that issue, I see. I also mentioned in the vehicle mode that Hound also is a bit plain. It could use a little more paint apps, I think. So there is that issue as well. Now, if I really had my wishes met, I would definitely like to see a leader class figure of this made. That would be simply fantastic. So that would be very, very cool. Hopefully that's in Hasbro's plans, because I think that would be definitely a good move on their part. So the articulation of the figure is pretty good. The sculpt is nice. Really, in terms of paint, I think the paint's a lot better in the robot mode in terms of paint and detail than it is compared to the vehicle mode. So it's nice to see at least one mode is nicely detailed. So let me go ahead and bring this back into robot mode. Definitely a recommended figure to pick up. It's one of the most anticipated Voyagers, and definitely it meets most of my expectations. So, there he is, back in robot mode. So definitely, if you haven't already, I recommend you pick the figure up. But Hasbro, definitely I would like to see a leader class of this figure. That would be very, very cool. Alright, well thanks for watching. This has been my review of Transformers 4, Age of Extinction, Voyager class, Autobot Hound.